I have an explanation for this, which I will leave till the end, I think. I've discovered the anti-Trump right. It's not Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't worry, or Tucker Carlson or any of those people. It's us. It's very clarifying. The tale is the US has always been great, the greatest, the most pure, the most virtuous democratic entity in the history of the world, and he is ruining it. Now, this greatness is a very low bar, of course, but still, we are essentially better than the rest. They are so cleverly right and so overwhelmingly supremacist. Trump arrived just in time, the nick of time. If one wonders why the Democratic Party is pro-Zionist, the beating heart of a supremacist root of Judeo-Christian civilization, it all makes sense if you readjust your definition of right-wing just a tad. It's okay, it is inevitable. One will even imagine that Heather Cox Richardson and Anne Applebaum are lefties. So much they hate Trump and Putin. So clearly are they one. I just reread an article I had criticized by Heather Cox Richardson to make sure I wasn't leaping to harshness because of the previous stuff and guff I had read. It was like a sieve. A subtle slip was referring to the US as the US at the top of the article until she slid back into her more comfortable America. Approving of NATO's open-ended mission in Russia, etc., despite adulating the Monroe Doctrine, keeping meddling European states out of Latin America. Quote, "Let them meddle in the East, not in the West, where we shall be free to meddle," end quote. Describing the world order dominated by the US and NATO since World War II as lovely and peaceful is as hysterical as other paxes. Now, it might have been worse. It might have been worse had Stalin or Mao been in charge, of course, the monsters. However, we'll never know that because the US has been at war since World War II. 12 million people have died in this wonderful world order, 80,000 only US troops. So, of course, no one really died. Pax for some, a nightmare for others. Most of those who died were Muslims. She quotes Applebaum in the article, an honest conservative who dismisses the East as run by dictators with whom Donald Trump allies and wants to model himself on. This is a fair assessment of both their supremacisms, naturally allied to a psychotic Europe rather than trusting other efforts from the East. Simply, what is the composition of NATO, racially and religiously? Answer that. What is going on with Germany as it funds and lavishes support on another genocide? Both parties in Britain, France, Scandinavia, Spain, all these glorious European nations, these enlightened Europeans, until just now, the only European nation quick and sure in its condemnation, Ireland. Well, we wonder why. So, imagining HCR, Heather Cox Richardson, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Keir Starmer, Hakeem Jeffries being on my side of the political fence, except in condemning Trump, perhaps just not possible. The funniest thing is Heather running out the statements in the 2025 national security strategy of Trump's as evidence of a new Nazi party when it reads exactly like the original Monroe Doctrine without the Disney treatment she adds. Both are odious. Quote, after the US-backed Bay of Pigs invasion failed in 1961, Fidel Castro felt threatened and sought defense. So he made overtures for better US relations, and they were rebuffed, pushing him decisively towards the Soviet Union, which then offered military aid and eventually placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, leading the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, leading to that. While Castro sought an alliance, the US viewed his communist revolution with hostility, enacting trade bans and planning invasions, making the Soviet offer for protection irresistible, end quote. The Monroe Doctrine in action, pure Applebaum, the anti-Trump right. And cue Chile, 9/11/1973. Now, I am a European American and a ponderer of history, And on these bases, I'd say the last community I'd trust on the face of this earth is the Euro-NATO. This does not drive me automatically into the arms of Trump or the Russians or Putin or Xi or whoever. Another facet of the HCR take, it just says a plague on both houses. The only reason I can convolute to work here is that the West is so convinced of its essential moral superiority that they simply forget that Hitler, Leopold, Mussolini, Franco, Orban, Ian Smith, the Afrikaans, Ferdinand and Isabella, and Stalin were all Europeans, being characteristically European, and that is a short list. Colonialism, apartheid, genocide are red lines for me, just are, and intrinsically European. They're not original sins, dear, or boo-boos. They are endemic. They are characteristic. They are vile. They are what Europe has done for centuries, and her wee colonies. It seems that the consensus psychological of human nature is that we cannot separate from our roots or our ancestors. This is apparently true. Euro-Americans I know with terrific brains cannot tell the truth about their own culture. The American Revolution is as significant as, in the minds of Western historians, Ken Burns, Jesus. Heather Cox Richardson's benign take on Monroe is cuddly for people who hate Trump and do little else. To me, they're all insignificant. Jesus, Jefferson, Washington, Trump, the lot. The American Revolution was a European spat between Europeans bent on genociding a continent or three and fighting over who'd get the spoils. Who they genocided were human beings too. All the rest is propaganda. And ever since then, and certainly since World War II, the world has been hostage to the identity crisis of an artificial and very unnatural civilization. Why ever does white America fund a war based on the claim of ancestral homeland? What kind of religious idiocy does that shed light on? Think. Were Mexico to ally with a Pacific Treaty Organization, an equivalent of NATO, a PTO, the United States would invade immediately by dint of doctrine and arrogance. See what she did after 9/11 and what that wrought. The psychosis, the sickness is that the other only is intolerable. Mamdani must crush Jeffries and Tisch, never take a meeting with Trump. When he does, we sneer. We must destroy MAGA and Gaza and Iran and Russia and Putin. They are, well, evil. We, good. Me, Tarzan. You, China. At the risk of insulting children, it's childish. People blink at me as if to say, of course, I need that kind of mythology or my dick would fall off. So, this is a great relief to me, this sort of realization, and I'm going to fight it till my end, really, that I'm going to fight that corner. I keep running into claims about democracy. I keep running into a very cheerful conversation that the wonderful Jon Stewart had the other day with a couple of people, all about the glories of the revolution, the American Revolution, the U.S. Constitution and stuff like that. And John kept saying, well, we did some bad things, but the glee, the enthusiasm, the good feeling, the sort of Christmassy smell around these two, an old man and a considerably younger woman, talking about how marvelous it all was and how it changed everything. And I'm going, no, it didn't. It didn't change a thing. It's rather like there was many expeditions and investigations to find out the truth about the Trojan War, whether or not it actually really happened. And I've gone through this before, but they sought everywhere. They went to Egypt. They went to Mycenae. They went to Athens. They went to Pella. They went to Troy itself, Hisarlik. They went everywhere. Oh my gosh, and they couldn't find any evidence. And then they said, oh, let's look east. And they did, and they found out the Hittites had a record of it. We need to do this now.